G'day. Now, Griffin Gaming has already gone and responded to one of these videos, but I was interested in being a little constructive and properly dissecting DreamcastGuy's argument. I won't show the entirety of both videos and instead will break down a few select moments. The original videos will be linked though, so if anyone thinks I've taken something out of context or missed a point entirely, the original videos are there to reference. Now then, on to the first video in question, his rather childish reaction to IGN's director Justin Davis.
Spider-Man Miles Morales,
Not actually a PS5 exclusive.
Sackboy's Big Adventure, Returnal, Godfall.
Also not a PS5 exclusive.
Both of these systems are definitely different and good in their own way, but today IGN has decided to stir up some nonsense and pretend there's a gigantic console war and say some utter freaking BS.
To be fair, console war bullshit is rampant no matter where you go. Just look at informational tweets showing what consoles can run a certain game at what resolution and frame rate, and you'll see plenty of people using it as an opportunity to bash one platform whilst praising theirs. Whether it's an informative tweet or a general opinion of the person making the tweet, it'll always be a collection of immature people in the comments.
Now brace yourself, this is some fanboy stupidity.
Just remember that this tweet is considered fanboy stupidity.
Look, the Xbox Series X is great in a lot of ways. It has more power, quick resume is fantastic. Personally, I think the Xbox controller is a little bit better than the PlayStation 5 even now, but we need to just look at the facts. PlayStation 5 has more console exclusives than the Xbox Series X.
One console having two exclusive games doesn't negate the fact that the library of exclusives is small. Being given a much larger library of games at a fraction of the cost, and with the ability to play older games in higher resolutions and at a much higher frame rate, is going to be a much more enticing option for some people, as well as being more cost effective.
PS5 library will get there, someday, and it will be expensive. Now, let's just try and be objective about this ridiculous statement. First and foremost, the biggest thing that Xbox people talk about is backwards compatibility. Now, I'm not going to be one of those PS5 fanboys that acts like that isn't a great feature. The fact that I can take any of these hundreds and hundreds of games off my wall, plug them directly into my freaking Xbox and play them upscaled 4K a lot of times, 120 frames a second, that is definitely an impressive feature. But here's my thought. PlayStation can do that as well, just not as old of games. You can do every generation of Xbox runs on the current Xbox. That's definitely an impressive thing.
You said it yourself, Xbox does backwards compatibility better. If you want to be objective, then why are you arguing against this point? Playing older Xbox games on the new console gives you a better experience, not to mention the fact that you have access to games from several generations, not just the Xbox One.
There are 4,000 PlayStation 4 games, almost all of which, 99.9% of that library, also works on the PlayStation 4. And you know what? I'm going to go a step further. A lot of PlayStation stuff is dirt cheap now. A lot of PlayStation 4 stuff is already on sale. Is it Games Pass price? No, of course not. But these experiences are still good, and it's weird that people just kind of hand wave them away.
And you even mentioned the price being better through Game Pass. So what's the issue here other than you being annoyed that the platform you prefer is being criticized?
Whenever you want to act like Game Pass is such a better deal, Game Pass is fantastic. Game Pass is cheap as hell. It is a tiny monthly fee. I give it credit for that. But the fact that there is still just thousands and thousands of games that will run, that are great, that are freaking good deals on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 is something that is too often disregarded.
The PS4 games that can be played on a PS5 are not being disregarded. If you read the tweet without being a fanboy, you would know they're praising the value of having Game Pass and taking advantage of more powerful hardware for games across multiple generations versus a console that plays two games that can't be bought on any other platform and a library of games from one console. For some people, this will be the better option. Why is that so hard to believe? That's without even mentioning the fact that on the new Xbox console, you take advantage of games being up-resed and have their frame rate increased, so older games play better in general. The PS5 doesn't have such a system in place to allow this for their older library. For me personally, I don't lean towards either console anyway. I play on PC. The PC is my main platform. If you happen to see this video, Will you scold me for supposedly disregarding Nintendo's library of games just because I'd rather play Insurgency Sandstorm and have no personal interest in Animal Crossing? It's ridiculous. Everyone has different opinions.
Games Pass is a great deal, but disregarding all the freaking amazing experiences that have been coming out over the course of the last bunch of years just because you want to try and play this console war fanboy BS, my point is not only are these experiences great, most of them are dirt freaking cheap. These games are still freaking super good deals. You can get some physical discs. My thought is this: whatever you want to play, wherever you want to play, I think it is absolutely worth it. I'm going to go a step further. I think that if you're able to have the pocket change for it, I'm very glad that I own both the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 because both these systems are freaking good and they're going to keep getting better.
What's the argument then? The IGN director prefers the Xbox library and prefers the value of Game Pass, but thinks the exclusive library of the PS5 will look more impressive later on down the line. How is this controversial?
But to act like specifically the PlayStation 5 is having a library problem when we're about to get Ratchet and Clank, we've gotten so many good games so far.
You have successfully proved the point of the PS5 library being small from an exclusive perspective by failing to provide an actual comprehensive list of games and not even being able to tell us what exclusive games are coming, apart from Ratchet and Clank. But on the topic of exclusives, there are more to consoles than what they offer in terms of exclusives. Not everyone wants to buy just exclusive games. I'm not downplaying any exclusive games, and I'm not going to say that none of them have been great because some of my most favorite games ever have been exclusive games. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are various opinions that people are going to have, and according to this IGN director, he leans more towards a cheaper and larger library of games in general to pick from.
The amount of people feeding into this, the amount of people that are jumping in here and being like, oh man, yeah, you act as if people can't play over 4,000 PlayStation 4 games. I hate this kind of fanboy stuff sometimes because it's acting like certain consoles are just useless pieces of plastic and the other ones are the holy grail of gaming.
He didn't say you couldn't play older games, but the truth of the matter is if you have older games to play and you want to expand your library without breaking the bank, then Game Pass is the more cost-effective option, as you already mentioned earlier. And on top of that, the games will run and look better. It's you who needs to stop the fanboy bullshit and actually accept the differences between the consoles. If you want to argue about who has the better exclusives, that's a subjective discussion to be had elsewhere. But right now, we can measure which console offers a better experience for playing older titles and which company offers a more bang for your buck option. And then it's up to the consumer to pick between the two. So they want to own physical games? Would they rather have all their games owned digitally on their preferred console? Or do they not mind the renting aspect of Game Pass and would they rather just have the cheapest option that gives them the most games to play? So the reason I've included this second video, and I'm only going to show a brief bit of it, is because I think it really highlights how DreamcastGuy doesn't really have an argument that he stands behind. He doesn't really seem to have an opinion that he's willing to stick up for. He seems to kind of flip-flop and do one thing but say another. Now, this video doesn't show him being completely hypocritical, but you see him become very dismissive towards certain attitudes that he showed in his very video towards the IGN director. So let's have a quick look at that.
Basically what's happening is that Bethesda, the people who have obviously invented things like Elder Scrolls and Fallout.
Okay, well first off, Bethesda didn't create Fallout. That goes to Interplay Productions.
Part of it is because Bethesda is actually a gigantic group of games. Not only is it Elder Scrolls and Skyrim and all that stuff.
And secondly, Skyrim is Elder Scrolls. Saying Elder Scrolls and Skyrim is the exact same thing. You could have at least Googled another game series or just game in general to say.
They can step in, spend enormous piles of cash to pick up these projects, and then practically give them away to anybody who owns an Xbox or Games Pass on PC. Now here's the thought about this. I'm glad, but I'm very understanding of the people that are currently outraged about this. I'm kind of laughing about some of the most hyperbolic comments, people acting like Microsoft is killing Bethesda, and just psychopathic comments like that are definitely not useful.
So just keep in mind here, he's laughing at other people being hyperbolic and not saying anything useful. Despite the fact he didn't offer anything useful in his video on the IGN director. He saw a tweet that was going against his preferred platform, and he reacted as a fanboy would. He became very defensive, didn't offer anything in the form of a constructive statement, and spent his time arguing against points that were never made.
I think that we're kind of still entering this time period where you are going to have to try and probably eventually grab every single console. And this is an expensive investment. I'm not going to act like that's cheap. I think that's part of the reason that people are just so incredibly outraged is because of this high cost to entry.
But it's always been like that. Exclusives have always been a burden for those who just love gaming as a hobby. Not everyone wants to fork out money for every platform, and in some cases a person might have a specific preference, or maybe all of their friends are on a particular platform, and so they're drawn to it because of that.
The problem with the streaming wars is that you eventually have to get everything. Like, if you want to see the latest movies, the craziest shows, the coolest animes and stuff, you're eventually going to subscribe to every service at some points. And the problem with this when it comes to game consoles is the incredibly high cost to entry. Like, the fact that you're going to probably have to eventually buy a $500 Xbox Series X to actually keep up with the other gamers, to me is a bit of a gigantic drawback.
Why haven't you done a video demanding that Sony release Ratchet & Clank on all platforms? Why is the argument of people having to buy multiple consoles and having to fork out extra money only relevant to you now that the Xbox is getting an exclusive that you seem very interested in? Just be consistent about it. If you don't like the idea of people having to buy multiple consoles to enjoy all the games that they like, say it. I personally don't like exclusives. I absolutely love when other games that were exclusive come to not only my platform, but other platforms. I really enjoy Escape from Tarkov. There is no other game quite like it on the market, and I would really love for consoles to be able to play that game because it's super, super unique. So either you don't like exclusivity, or you only don't like exclusivity when it's going against your preferred platform. Just at least be honest about it. Just tell all of us with a straight face your opinion on why buying an Xbox for Bethesda games is a drawback, but buying a PS5 for, say, Naughty Girl games is not a drawback. I'd like to see you address this. Anyway, those are some of my quick thoughts on the matter and DreamcastGuy's arguments that he's been making. Ideally, I'd love to sit down and actually have a chat with people when they have opinions like this. I think it'd be much more constructive to have a proper back and forth discussion, and you can kind of more easily make your points, explain them in more detail, and having these conversations in real time would probably lead to a better understanding of the arguments being made. But until then, I'll just make some responses to statements that I see and just see what happens. I tried reaching out just recently to King Thrash Gaming regarding his pretty terrible video on Gamers Nexus, and apparently he watched the video. I don't know how much, but he ended up replying to me regarding the fact that he never even made an argument about Gamers Nexus or even bothered to discuss what it was that they did wrong. And the reply I got was pretty much along the lines of, oh, but people should know that what they did was stupid. And that's the only argument he seemed to have. So I guess if a person isn't interested in learning something new or being challenged, then they're just not going to change their minds at all. Until the next video, have a good one.